Your district would be very hardly hit if these SALT deductions are eliminated. But we're hearing from the House bill, at least, that they're preserving the property tax deduction up to $10,000. So can you be supportive of this bill? Where do you stand as the bill currently looks?
I do not support it in its current form for the reasons you've suggested, Shery. The average SALT deduction in the district I represent is $21,000, and we're making progress, but we're not there yet. And of course, the Senate version of the bill completely eliminates SALT.
How much of this is really baked into the way senators are elected and representatives are elected? Because you represent a specific district in a blue state, in a state that tends to go Democrat. Senators are elected by the statewide, so they don't have the same incentive as you do to make sure you take care of your constituents.
I would hope that our U.S. senators in New Jersey would enter the fight. And I'm critical of the Democratic Party, David, because the Democrats have really been on the sideline. They've been critics, but they've not indicated what they would support, and I would hope they might indicate what they would support. I favor many of the proposals in the tax reform bill, but SALT is a deep hurdle for me because of the district I represent.
The House bill cuts the mortgage interest deduction cap also to $500,000. Not so the Senate bill, which leaves that intact. Could you support such a move?
I certainly favor leaving that where it is. Now, this only affects new mortgages, so if you have a current mortgage, you would not have a negative impact. But I favor leaving that where it is, and as you know, this has been a criticism by the home builders and by the real estate industry in this country. And I think there is a strong tradition in this country to make sure that as many Americans as possible are able to purchase residences.
There are so many things that, in general, people would like to have in tax cuts. But we have to pay for them. And a lot of these issues, whether it's SALT on the Republican side, whether it's the limiting the home deduction for mortgages on the House side, is to pay for the tax cuts. How concerned are you about the deficit, and how would we pay for some of these cuts?
I think that we should recognize that we don't want the deficits to be extremely high. I favor a modest amount of dynamic scoring, but not an unrealistic amount. And I think this will be an issue particularly in the Senate. And for example, the corporate rate is going to go down to 20%, and maybe that could be moved a little bit. I don't think that this should be borne on the back of those of us in states like New Jersey. New Jersey sends more to Washington per capita and receives less back than any state in the nation, and I want this to be a winner for all states.
But how do you balance the fact that you need a win for your constituents, but the GOP also needs a win on some legislative progress? Does that give you pause when you're going against this bill?
Certainly, I think that we should have tax reform, but I don't think that we should do it fast. I think we should do it comprehensively in a fair fashion, and that's why I think it might take longer than November or December. The last time we had major tax reform was in 1985 and 1986, Shery, and it took 2 years.
So how do you read the elections on Tuesday? As a Republican representative in the House of Representatives, either for yourself in your own district or as you look at your fellow members of Congress, how will that affect the tax reform plan?
Speaking first about the district I represent, we had an election for governor of New Jersey on Tuesday. My side lost, but the Republican candidate carried the district I serve by about 14,000 votes, and I was pleased to see that. Secretary Clinton had carried the district I serve by 3,800 votes. I carried it by 38,000 votes. I prefer that extra zero, but I point out that the Republican candidate did carry our district. Regarding the elections in total, Virginia and New Jersey, we were not successful, and I think that was based upon circumstances in those two states. But I wouldn't overread what happened on Tuesday.
Are you saying that it wasn't a referendum on President Trump or the GOP?
I think in New Jersey, after 8 years of one party's being in power, usually the other party comes into power. And I think that these elections will be determined based upon national issues next year.
But does it make tax reform more likely or less likely to get enacted?
I don't think the elections on Tuesday will have a particularly strong imprint on tax reform. I think we should do tax reform, but I want to do it right.
Two more House Republicans announced their retirement, including Congressman Frank LeBiondo of New Jersey. So does this put the House really at play here for the Democrats to make a comeback?
I know Congressman Lobiondo very well. He will have served 24 years. I think it was his decision and his wife's decision that this was an appropriate time. I think these elections will be determined based upon each district.